Firefighters are always looking out for you. Who's looking out for them? Firefighters do have someone in their corner, and we're talking about it next with Ed Kindler and Phil Holstrom of Retirement Plan Advisors on this episode of Compounding Change.
This is the Compounding Change Podcast, sharing stories of small but meaningful changes that compound into amazing impact. Brought to you by Shannon Davis and DavisCompoundingChange.com. Change happens fast. Take advantage. Discussions on this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a registered broker-dealer, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Retirement Plan Advisors LLC, a federally registered investment advisor. Cambridge Investment Research and Retirement Planning Advisors are not related to DavisCompoundingChange.com or this podcast. Now, here's your host, Shannon Davis.
Welcome to Compounding Change, the podcast where small actions lead to big results. I'm Shannon Davis, your host and a financial advisor who works with police and firefighters and those everyday heroes. But this podcast is about more than just finances. And today I have with me Ed Kindler and Phil Holstrom, who actually work with me with Retirement Plan Advisors and work with those wonderful police and firefighters and their 457 deferred comp plans. And I thought it would be great to just talk with you guys and get your take on our everyday interactions with the firefighters and police officers that we get to deal with and what we do, and just shed a little light on that. So we just got back from our convention, or the LITS convention in Columbus, which was great and always good to see you guys because we don't get to see each other a lot. Might email or text or contact each other with questions about something, but not a lot of interaction, even though we work together. So welcome, Phil. Welcome, Ed.
Good morning.
Thank you.
So like I said, just a conversation, just want to get it out there. Let's start with you, Phil. So
Okay.
I know you've been in the business a while, but I think that this was newer to you when you came on board and working just like me, working with the 457 deferred comp stuff, but you are a financial advisor and have been for some time. So what's your takeaways from your experience here, and how are things going?
Things are going well, very well, I'd say. I guess the biggest learning curve for me in this role has just been learning about firefighting. There's a lot more to it than I ever knew, and it does change the way you approach your clients, because you don't know what they're thinking about, or if they were just on a call that could have been really intense. Just being respectful of what they're going through and understanding.
Yeah. You also got a great understanding, which unfortunately I was out of town and missed, which I hope to get the opportunity again. You had firsthand knowledge of what they deal with, right?
Yes.
I love your stories about that.
I went to fire ops training in Columbus, and that's a program where they it's mostly politicians from local towns, municipalities, etc., to give them a taste of what firefighting is really like.
Yeah.
So, that was where I learned a little too much about firefighting.
Yeah. It gives you a whole different respect, though, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
It's hard work.
Again, very, very eye-opening, but worth the experience.
Yeah, my favorite is when you said you went down on one knee and needed a little bit of help up, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's protocol, but that's how it worked out.
Yeah, falling and can't get up. Ed, you've been in the business for a while. Did you have a lot of experience with 457s, deferred comp plan, and all of that prior?
No, I wouldn't say a lot of experience. I've worked in retail, worked as a retail financial advisor for nearly 20 years. And prior to that, a lot of it was just individual clients. And I have met some firefighters, some police over the years as clients, but really the exposure to the firehouses and really what they do and what Phil mentioned is brand new to me, and it's intriguing to me. I try to, every day that I'm at a firehouse, I try to learn something new, ask them a bit about their job and what they do to get that better understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I started, I my first comment, which right or wrong, was you guys just aren't just calendar pictures, right? No. It's not just about the calendar. I'm kidding. I don't have a calendar. Anyway, so this weekend, I know that every time we go to a conference and when we do get to sit in, there's more interaction too, or more that we learn as well. I didn't sit in the session, but I know that you were impacted by some of the stories you heard this weekend or this week, Phil, because you got to
Yes.
sit in a session that Ed and I didn't. But what do you feel like these are good takeaways for us as well as the firefighters, or for these getaways?
Yes, I do. I do. Any insight to, what they go through, what they're dealing with, you know, the general public just thinks, well, if there's a fire, they go. And
Yeah.
this particular one was sort of a debriefing for the group about a mass shooting
Mm.
and, the paramedics who were there and how they handled things and sort of the chaos and the coordination with police. And it was pretty intense. But again, just another thing that I never thought that firefighters really had to deal with, but they are.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that I take away from it in all of my interactions is that, I mean, first of all, we're all just people, right? And then they're dealing with this. I had a friend whose husband actually had fallen off a cliff and was rescued. It was in Michigan, so it wasn't our
Yeah.
local firefighters, um but I just think about how we go out and do things and then just think that these Superman heroes are going to come rescue us. I mean, to no fault of his own, but anyway, that's a whole nother story. But ultimately, they have to go, go down the cliff, go down the side of the mountain to rescue, and we're all just people. And yeah, there might be some good equipment that they use, but they're still people and putting their lives at risk. And I don't think there's enough credit that goes into that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I would say
personally.
I
absolutely,
agree.
because it's not that they were how shall I say, not assigned or placed into the job unwillingly. They've taken it upon themselves to work in public service to help others, and they don't really hesitate to do exactly that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. With that goes into kind of a financial discussion, but that's what we are, and that's what we do. But I also think that, and I don't know how you guys feel about this directly, but I always hear people make comments about, well, I don't have a pension, I don't have a pension, kind of begrudgingly. But I don't think what people realize too is that what goes into the pension for our firefighters or police officers, that they're paying 12.25% into their own retirement savings. That yes, it does create a guarantee for them, and granted the employer pays into that as well. But I mean, if more of our clients saved at the level that our firefighters save, they'd have a lot better retirements as well. Do you think?
Absolutely.
Yes. I'm always impressed with the amount of savings I see firefighters doing,
Yeah.
between the pension and the 457 plan and, you know, other things that they do. So,
Do either of you try to set your other clients up with a more pensionable rate of savings that would be equal to what our firefighters are doing? Or do they just stand back and, can't afford to do it?
I don't know that I have any clients that might be contributing at quite that same level in terms of a percentage of income that, the firefighters are required to put into their pension. A lot of times it's really just based upon what is needed to get to an end goal.
Hmm.
However, with that being said, I think, for all of us, if we could find the room in our budget to, contribute 12.25% or anything even close to that to a retirement program of some sort, we would discover that upon retirement, we had prepared and done exactly what we needed to do.
Yeah, nothing's been given to them for free.
right.
Absolutely.
And the other side of it is they do retire early and they need to retire early. I
Right.
used to think, oh gosh, these guys haven't made, they're only working for 25 years and, retiring at age 48 or 50. Um, but they need to because the job is so demanding mentally and physically.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my parents are retired teachers, and teaching, I think, is very taxing as well. Maybe not on the physical level, so you can do that longer, but that's another job that people look at and think they've got it pretty easy. Everybody thinks the 3 months off in the summer, which isn't really, but there are a lot of holidays and there are summers. But to me, that would be excruciatingly painful being a teacher.
I agree with
Absolutely.
you.
But yeah, that's another profession that can be credited for having a decent retirement plan. Isn't your
Yes.
wife a teacher, Phil?
Well, she's in education more on the
Okay.
administrative side.
Okay. Does that give you a different view of saving for your clients or helping your clients save for retirement?
Yeah, a little bit. But again, she gets to work. She works longer.
Mm-hmm.
She'll probably retire at, I don't know, 64 or 65. So you don't have that shorter time frame you're working with. So it's a little
Right.
easier to get there
Yeah.
with more time.
Yeah. What do you guys go into? And I mean, I know what my messages are when I go into stations or I want to talk to participants, and I probably throw up at them with too much information, but it's like if I couldn't talk to them again, what do I want them to know? What's your core message when you go into stations?
I would say for me, it's just letting them know and I truly mean it, that I'm there to help them prepare for retirement.
So what do you do for them? What can you do for them? I mean, you're not just a deferred. Do you get called the deferred comp guy, or
Quite
is that
often,
just me?
yes.
Oh, okay. I thought it was
Yes.
just the deferred comp ladies here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of that, it's, sitting down with the individual to look at their financial goals, income, and really just at the core of it, put together a plan of what, what we would recommend that they do to achieve that goal. And I think a lot of that really just it takes truly listening to what they want, to what struggles they're facing now, and obstacles that might hinder them from achieving that goal, and helping them to overcome those obstacles. I think a lot of that is just realistic, or conveying a realistic message of what they do need to save, or what steps they need to take to achieve that level of success.
Hmm.
Yeah, I usually try to have at least one sort of investment tip of the day when I go out. Recently, here it's just been, and this fits perfectly with your podcast, that even little small increases in their contributions can make a big difference over time. And I have some, illustrations of how that works. And basically, just by increasing their contribution by $10 per month per year, can almost double what they're putting away rather than just keeping things level and never changing it. So just little things like that, they don't have their minds on this stuff. So
Hmm.
just try to open it up for them.
Yeah, it is amazing how quickly things compound, and the good and the bad. When you do the math on your savings plan, whether you take a couple years off or you start a few years late, the difference that can make. The second cookie can every single day can make a difference on our fitness, on the bottom line, right? On our waists. We're a little indulgent with the candy. No, no, not pointing any fingers. The last couple days, right? Just kidding. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is letting our firefighters and police know that we are there to help, and that we can do more than just give them the advice on the deferred comp, and it is a whole financial picture, and that all of those things are important, whether it comes to saving for their kids for school, or for their helping their spouse save for retirement. For me, I think that's the the missing piece. I mean, I get that, and I get to sit with people, and I enjoy that part of it, but I think sometimes that is not regarded or aware that we do all of that. So
True.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think, a lot of it, which they see even when they're in the training academy, it's everyone trying to get to what they feel is their money, their paycheck.
Mm. Yeah.
And a lot of it is, I think, not necessarily understanding the benefits of, contributing to your 457, to buying the life insurance, to anything that might be on that potential list. It's not always articulated to them in regards to how it truly benefits them in the long term. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's an important step, because for all of us, we want to know that we have some return on our investment, whether
Right.
that's money out of our paycheck or time that we set aside to a certain task. I think all of us, again, want to know what is the benefit to me.
Well, and speaking of paycheck, I think that I've run into that recently, even on my own, before I got to met up with you guys on Monday. I just had my husband and I just got a fraud alert notice on the credit card, which leads me to the whole paycheck thing, is just being aware of what your charges are. Because once he went back and went through a little bit more, it went a few weeks deeper than just that one charge. But that I've the last couple weeks I've been in stations and we've gone over paycheck stubs, and maybe things were being withheld as Roth, but it was being contributed to their plan as pre-tax, which, as we know, that's going to be talk about little changes and big results, right? To the
Yeah.
negative, that would be
Yeah,
a huge negative result come retirement time if that weren't caught. So I can't help but try to get that message across, to look at your paychecks and your pay stubs and also your accounts, to know how it's going in, where it's going in. I hear that a lot with the people go in through the academy, and then they have all these people come through, and they're giving their money to this museum or the zoo or or to this out of every paycheck for years. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but know where your money's going. Do you
absolutely.
guys run into the same thing? I'd assume you
Yes,
do.
and I think it's just more than anything about financial education. I was pleasantly surprised when a firefighter told me a couple days ago that one of his children was going through financial education classes in high school,
Oh,
because
wow.
that for me wasn't something that was available.
No.
Even for my son, who's nearly 18, that's not a class that's available to him, and it's just the lack of effort, or lack of effort in terms of educating just our general population about these things that are critical for them to know. Everything from balancing a checkbook to, how much should you be saving for retirement?
Right.
And, that individualized education that we offer when we're going to the firehouses, when we're meeting with individual firefighters and others out there, to me, that I think is invaluable, because if you learn those concepts, that is something that will help an individual for their life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And continue on through generations.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just a thought that you triggered when you were talking about going over the pay stubs. I think the most frustrating thing for me, and probably for you too, is when you go into a firehouse and you're there and you're ready to help folks, and all you hear is, I'm good, don't need to talk,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which is okay. But um, I feel like while we're there, at least let's take a look at things. Maybe everything's great, but maybe there's something that's not, like your
Yeah.
example with the contributions, or uh, allocation isn't quite set right, or the beneficiary hasn't been changed in 10
Yeah.
years and things have changed for them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess if I could wish for one thing, is just, um, you know, just hear us out. Just
Jer-
sit and
Jerry
talk for a few
Maguire
minutes.
saying, "Help me, help you," right?
Yeah, it's kind of like
That's what
that.
always goes through my mind when I hear I'm good. I'm like, "Let me help you."
Yeah, and I think a lot of that too is just preconceived notions. A lot of times, or at least I feel, I'm in the station, and when I get that sort of feedback, it almost seems like they think I'm just trying to sell them something, and
Right.
that's not my approach or even my philosophy. It's, I'm here to help you with your finances, with achieving your financial goals, and if you're willing to place some trust in me and have an honest conversation, I can do exactly that. All of us can. And I think, a lot of that just goes into, again, building trust and them understanding the benefit to having even a simple conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the beneficiary thing though is huge. I can't tell you the number of times that, but it also goes into, you could look at our role just with those station visits is I'm making the time. This is the time to do it. If you didn't take the time, because I mean, I'm at fault too. I'll do that later. I'll do that later, and I think that that's what happens. And I think the second we walk out of the station there, the intention might be there to go back and check their beneficiaries, or they'll get to it later. And this goes with anybody. It's not just a firefighter thing, any client. And I can't tell you how many times I go back 6 months later for any client and that wasn't taken care of. So it's kind of a hand holding thing of, let me do it with you. Let me do it. I do it for you, but I don't always have that control, and definitely don't have the control to just change a beneficiary at will. So,
Yeah.
this is our opportunity to sit down together and make sure that it's done
Yeah.
and done right.
Well,
Unless the website's not working.
something that Ed alluded to. I mean, I don't think people understand that, we're not paid on commission. We don't get commission for what we do.
Right.
So we truly are there to help and give unbiased financial advice. And the
Right.
union set it up that way on purpose because they didn't want somebody representing them to go in and just trying to strong our people into a product. They want true advice.
Right.
That makes me feel good about what I do.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, it is fulfilling and it is enjoyable. And I've had nothing but good experiences working in this capacity. I hope you guys have too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for clarity, Ed, you are currently handling Columbus and you live in Columbus
Hmm.
and working on maybe picking up some of the surrounding areas eventually, right?
Absolutely.
And Phil, you're all of Southern.
Southwest. Yeah, Southwest is really my main area, but I cover a few places a little north of 70 and a little further out east, just kind
Yeah.
of depending on the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And so far I've pretty much been handling northern Columbus up, northern Ohio. But I think we all work really well together, and if somebody needs something, um, they can reach out to any one of us. So,
Yes.
Absolutely.
and we have our 800 number too, but I try to make my number available for everybody, and I think you guys do too, so that they're not calling the 800 number, whether it be Empower or our general 800 number, which they can absolutely reach out to that as well. But
Yes.
Yeah, I think accessibility is key for any of my clients, any of the firefighters. I always try to get back to them if I can't answer their call. Try to get back as quickly as possible, because everyone's time is important to them, and especially with the firefighters, they're on 24 hours, not telling you anything you don't know, and then off for 48, and they're often trying to, take care of the kids, get other things done, and then we have many firefighters that have a whole second career outside of the station. So I think, one, their time is important, but at the same time, we our goal is to make or request the time to really sit down, understand their goals, and work from there.
right. Yeah. And financial it's more than just the numbers. It is exactly what you were saying though, is make time to understand what all of our individual clients need and what their emotional and their preconceived ideas and what their retirement goals are. So, everybody wants that bottom dollar amount, and I love that there's a community that everybody is in this field, that they talk.
Hmm.
But one person's situation is not necessarily the same as the other person's, so we hope to bridge that gap and fill that space and give them individual advice. And again, that goes for any of our clients, not just firefighters or police officers or public sector employees.
Yeah, and there is a lot of variation. I mean, if you look at the firefighters, some are single income households, some are not. Like I mentioned before, some of these firefighters have second careers, in addition to their time as a firefighter. And so that being said, we can't, of course, can't generalize, what a firefighter does or what their finances look like, just like we can't for the overall public. And it
Right.
really takes sitting down with them and understanding those factors, their goals, before we can really make quality recommendations and be able to truly help them achieve their goals.
Definitely. Definitely. So that bring one of a couple of the topics that we talked about this week, one being drop,
Hmm.
that they have that, and the timing of entering that, again, different for everybody. It's not a cut and dry thing. It's not something that everybody wants to do or can do. I mean,
Hmm.
maybe physical limitations, but also now we've got the whole Social Security thing going on, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I know that you're both educated on that, but that was one of the questions that was coming up this week.
Hmm.
As far as finding information, of course, going to the Social Security website. My thing is always encouraging everybody to create their accounts with Social Security, and this was even before when they're with the windfall elimination provision. Create those accounts, see where you are with your 40 quarters. Have you accumulated those credits? What does it look like if you take Social Security at 62, 65, 67? What does that do? um, any input, advice on that? I know,
Yeah.
again, I'm not asking for general advice, just anything that you guys are running into.
Again, just a little personal experience. Talk about my wife being in education. So we think that she now, falls into that category and will get Social Security, whereas before she was not. And I thought, it might be $200-300 a month or something. What's the big deal? Turns out she's going to get about $1,000 a month. I mean, that makes a big difference in
That's good.
retirement. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's totally worth it to check it out. Make sure if you're close, make sure you get over because it could be, a nice situation for you.
Yeah, I don't think people realize too, how little of income it takes to start earning those credits. And obviously, the more you earn, the more your Social Security check is going to be naturally. But as far as earning your credits or your quarters, what does that look like? And it's a lot less than people think. I have a lot of self-employed or 1099 employed clients, and ultimately they think, well, I'm not getting Social Security, but they have paid into it and they have paid something and earned something, even if their income isn't showing because they have so many other expenses. Their income might not show it, but they've actually earned the credits that they didn't think they even had. So
Yeah.
very important to create those accounts. And just like creating your logins for whether it's your deferred comp account or your other mutual fund account or your bank account, sounds really ignorant of me, but I thought, well, if I didn't create my login, nobody else will either, right? Because that's secure because it wasn't created. Quite the opposite, right?
Hmm.
So Social Security needs to be monitored too. I've also run into and encouraged one of the firefighters to look at his, and he did, and there were mistakes, and he got those corrected before he starts collecting Social Security. So very important to create those accounts and look at that. I've looked at mine. I'd like to have some of those zeros gone of non-earning years, but ultimately you want to make sure that you're getting credit for everything, just like they do with their pension and their earning years. So have you guys created your accounts?
Oh,
Your Social
yes.
Security? Okay.
And in
Yeah,
fact,
Just making
I
sure.
use
we've had it
mine.
for years.
Yeah.
I use my account, my own personal account at times, just to show the firefighters what they'll be looking at once they log in, where to look
Mm-hmm.
for, how many qualifying quarters, how to view the chart that gives you the different amounts of Social Security, different ages, and so on. And that visual is nice to have. So,
Mm-hmm.
And it helps looking at your own account helps educate you so you can share it with other folks and clients, firefighters, etc.
absolutely.
Definitely. So that the other big question is when. We were talking about that this week. Your
Yeah,
opinion on timing goes back to everybody's different, right?
yeah, absolutely.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So what's the benefit of them waiting until later? It's like a pop quiz.
I was going to say the benefit to waiting would be the increase in what you would get. But I think, and we discussed this prior, but the it being situational means, yes, we can give some general ideas, but if a person wants to truly know when is the best time, then, let's sit down and go through a financial plan and allow them to make an educated decision on what is the best time for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing. Know your options, know how it's going to affect you and your surviving spouse,
Hmm.
because that could be a good source of income for your spouse later on if something happens to you. So you may want to
Right.
wait longer to get that higher survivor benefit.
Right. Depending on who's the higher earner in the house.
Hmm.
And there's also strategies of who takes what when in
Yeah.
a marriage
Yeah, sure.
relationship. So it's not, again, even not cut and dry with that. So I do look for the opportunities to sit down with people and have those conversations like you were saying, Ed, because it is so individual.
Yes.
The I just had a conversation before we got on with a participant who called and is maybe 8 to 10 years from retirement. But I think my biggest message that I want to get across is if there's other financial advisors, I definitely respect that somebody has somebody else besides us that they're working with. But I just would never want to see somebody's 457 rolled into an IRA when they're 52 years old and they actually wanted to access it early. And
Hmm.
one of the benefits of a 457 is not having that 10% penalty. So I know that I personally have run into participants who have rolled money out not realizing that just because it originated somewhere doesn't mean that that still applies. Have you guys been in those situations too, or do you?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually by the time we find out, it's sometimes too late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can't go back.
Yep. Yep. So
And there's also the public safety distribution for health insurance premiums that you can use. It's a
exactly.
457, but you can't with an IRA. So,
Right. Up to $3,000 a year for health insurance premiums, lowering their tax consequence for the year. So that's a benefit. Definitely. Lots of good things that can be had. Just have to kind of put those pieces together and make them work together.
Yeah, and I
So,
think along those lines, something that every person should ask about their advisor is, are they working in my best interest?
mm-hmm.
Because I
Yeah.
think too often that might be disregarded, or, even if we're looking at a rollover from a 457 to an IRA, were the proper disclosures made? Do they understand what they're losing out on, or was that skipped over in that
Right.
conversation in which the rollover recommendation was made?
Yep. Yep. Well, even with this, one of the great things going into retirement is having a self-directed brokerage option for this specific plan that they
Hmm.
can take that into retirement. So it's not necessary that potentially their advisor it might work that they're rolled out. There may be reasons to be rolled out, but it's not cut and dry because
No,
there's a
it's
lot
not.
of a lot of options. So I just when I go around to stations just try to educate on every feature of the plan possible so that they have as much education to your point, Ed,
Hmm.
as possible going into it. But
they need to hear the message a lot.
yes,
Because,
we all
yeah,
do. Oh my goodness, when I
you
was
know,
learning this, all the
yeah,
intricacies of our business, tell me again. Tell me again. I don't understand this or I don't understand that. So,
I still ask you guys questions all the time.
yeah, right. That's why
Repetition
we
is key.
exactly.
Well, I
Exactly.
mean, and you take a look at the amount of training that firefighters do. That's another thing that kind of amazes me. I mean, they're always training on something.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's every day.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
departments do that. And, I think about other professions and myself. My gosh, if I was doing that amount of training, how good would I be? I mean, we do training, but not to
Right.
that level.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's
Well,
always
I do.
fascinating. Oh, my apologies. I was going to say
No.
it's always fascinating to me to what you said, Phil. Just being at the stations and seeing the rope work and
yeah.
just different courses and educational bits on work of a paramedic and such. And to what you said, it truly is ongoing. Um,
Mhm.
and you'll even see slow days at the stations often end in training.
Hmm.
Because it gives them something to do, helps them to hone their skills, and at the end of the day, I mean, they're there to help us. So anything, of course, that they can do to improve upon that skill set benefits everyone.
Hmm. Well, I will say though that I do sometimes feel, not sometimes, very often feel that with the level of continuing ed that we do and education that we do, I don't know when I'm supposed to do my job because I feel like I'm constantly adding continuing education to
Hmm.
my docket and to my schedule. So we do try to stay up on our craft as well, because
Absolutely.
it might not be saving a physical life, but it is still important work, and for what everybody else sacrifices to get to their retirement, we want to make sure that we're not doing anything, not giving any poor advice
Yeah.
with that. So, well, you guys have anything else that you want to share that you think people need to know about what we do, what you do, or know about you, um, before we wrap it up here?
Some of this we've said, but I'd like to reiterate the way I view our roles as financial advisors. We get a bad rap, and there's bad apples in every career, well, yeah, every career known to man. But at the end of the day, it's when you take an approach of I as an advisor truly want to help this person. I want to figure out what's going on, what their goals are, and figure out the best way to help them get there. I think people, any client tends to see that passion and dedication. And I would say to anyone out there, this might be a bit controversial, but do you feel that your relationship with your existing advisor reflects that? Do they
Right.
care to get those facts? Do they care to explain what you're getting into? All the benefits and disadvantages of a particular investment recommendation. And again, if a person has any questions about that, even if it was one of my own clients, I would say you need to find an advisor that you are most comfortable with and that addresses those things, and that ultimately that you feel very strongly, if not totally certain, that they are working in your best interest.
Yeah. This is not something to just stay with somebody just out of quote unquote loyalty,
Hmm.
because you have to be comfortable and make sure that they have your best interest at heart.
Yes.
So it is very relationship oriented, and um, it you can't worry about offending your current advisor if you're not comfortable with them. It's your money.
Hmm.
I shop around for doctors. I'm not
Yeah.
just gonna let anybody operate on me.
And I would say, a person's finances are almost just as important as their physical health, with your doctor
Yeah,
analogy. So all are
definitely.
equally important.
Right.
The other thing I would just emphasize is to the firefighters is, we are a resource for you. Um, basically anything financial related. We may not always have the answer, but we'll help you find it. Um, rather than asking your buddy sitting next to you, or sometimes, participants call directly into Empower, which can go very well or not so well
Right.
because of hold times and other things. But, I hate it when I see a participant who's frustrated because they were trying to get some information, they couldn't get it, they aren't sure how to do it. Call us and
Right.
ask us, and we can save you a lot of grief sometimes. So.
Well, and to be frustrated, and I've felt this with different scenarios too, so I understand it, but ultimately you're going to be the one who's hurting from it. So to be frustrated and think, I'm not going to save any, I'm so sick of that phone call didn't go well, calling that 800 number or whatever it may be. So I'm done. I'm done with it. I'm not doing it anymore. Well, hopefully you find another savings vehicle, because that's not, you're just hurting yourself, because we'll be quickly forgotten. I remember when my kids were little, my daughter was watching TV, and I did that whole thing with calling the cable company, dating myself, right? We don't really use the cable companies anymore, but called the cable company, and I was always told, if you threaten to shut off your service, then they'll work with you, right? Now all of a sudden the TV went off. My daughter was watching a show, and I'm like, well, then I think I'm going to just cancel. And he's like, okay. And he shut me off. I'm like, that's not where I was going with that. So same type of thing. I mean, technically I hurt myself because, then I didn't have cable. But regardless, I don't want somebody to stop saving just because they have a bad experience with calling an 800 number, and dealing with it, or being frustrated that we can't necessarily make the change on their contribution amount or on their investment without their help, because they do need to log in and make those physical changes.
That's a benefit of our plan. You've got a contact to talk to instead of just an 800 number.
Exactly. Well, I know you guys spent the week in Columbus with me and took time away from everything, but I really appreciate you guys taking a little bit more time and talking to me for this. So I'll let you get back on with your day, unless you have anything else you want to share.
No, I was happy to join today. Thank you for the invite, and no need to worry about affecting the rest of my day. I'll get plenty done.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to know how the royalties work on this deal.
Right. Yeah.
Start getting those.
I'll let you know when I do. I'll share the wealth.
I really admire what you're doing with the podcast. I mean, it's not easy.
Thanks.
It takes a lot of work. So
thanks. Always put myself out of my comfort zone for some reason. I don't know why I do it, but yet again. So thanks again, guys. I appreciate it, and we'll see you at the next event, right? And be on email and all of that. But so thank you everyone for joining me on this episode of Compounding Change. Remember, big results come from small actions. Until next time.
This has been the Compounding Change Podcast with Shannon Davis. If you are a firefighter or first responder, you know that change happens fast. Life changes, finance changes, compounding change. Shannon Davis is a certified retirement counselor who understands the needs of Ohio Association of Professional Firefighters members. Click on daviscompoundingchange.com to learn more. Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a registered broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Retirement Plan Advisors LLC, a federally registered investment advisor. Cambridge Investment Research and Retirement Planning Advisors are not related to daviscompoundingchange.com or this podcast. Please note that investment involves risk, and no statements made in this recording are indicative of future performance. The Compounding Change Podcast is brought to you by Shannon Davis.